Udi, like Susita said, we had a run of this presentation in New York on the 25th of September, which is the actual 20th anniversary since Said's passing. It was a very warm evening. Mariam, his wife, was there, and Najla, his daughter, Udi, Simon, and some other dignitaries, and a lot of people that Susita had gathered. And but that, remember, it was 25th of September, so it was prior to the October, you know. Therefore, it didn't have that political tinge as much. It was more focused on the poetry and the celebration of him as an intellectual and so on. So, with Udi and Najla and some other people, we're doing a repeat of this in January, which is the official pub date of the book, at McNally Jackson. And so this is sort of a, you know, a kind of rendition, rehearsal.
I have to say something. I don't know
how... No, now it's all you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say something for you. I don't know how it always happens. Whenever I try to speak about someone, first I speak about my mother. And that's because I'm a Jewish kid. And second, because she's the most amazing person I ever met. And she, the 24th of January, it's the 10 years of her death.
You're joking.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when I checked.
We had no idea.
And for me, Edward Said is a, I don't know even how to say it, but maybe I have to tell a little bit about myself. And I have to read a poem of Edward Said here, and I'm dyslexic, so it might sound not so good, but very emotional. So I think that I will start to read his poem to invite him to our room first. And when he will be with us, it will be easier for me to tell you about the call I heard from Said. All people of the village. Hamdi and Khadija together were withered now. Their children mostly dead or away. Their friends dead. Men annoyed them, women bored them. Children were hateful wounds, like unfinished dreams of the way they couldn't grow, perfectly dressed in spotless robes their younger village maid wore for feasts. Khadija and Hamdi never went to feasts, never shared a meal, never received, never gave, rarely moved. We heard the cracked voices behind the cracked door, soothing each other in luring bliss, and squares of times when Hamdi could have been undone. So, I'm really should define myself probably as an Israeli Jew, and I grew up with this mother that was maybe the founder of all civil rights concept in Israel, and for a long time I tried to keep this identity of Israeli Jew, and be very proud of what my mother tried to do there. And it was first she fight for women's rights, children's rights. Then she fight for gay rights and make homosexuality legal in Israel pretty much by herself. She was in the parliament, and when she see that the Orthodox Jew left, she just the vote 3 times. And the day after, homosexual born wake up in Israel and they realize that what they do is legal. So her funeral was the most queer funeral you ever seen. And more time passed, you realize that really the real exploited people in the land of Israel, Palestine, are Palestinian. And it didn't come natural to her because she grew up in a very Zionist ideology. In 48, she fight the fight. So her understanding, you saw how it broke her from inside to understand really that the fight was really not all the time it's a true fight if you don't fight for the Palestinian people. And in 2001, I shot a film after September 11, and we went to visit Yasser Arafat when he was in curfew, and we visit also Hanan Ashrawi that she's an amazing voice for Palestine, whoever know. And when I see Hanan Ashrawi and my mother in such a deep friendship and such a close energy, I realize that there is a voice there that is more radical than the voice even that my mother understands, that can change the structure of this place. And this voice, I can call it a binational voice, or binational state, or binational something, but I didn't have a word for it yet. And in this time also I met the rapper Tamer Nafar, that on Monday is going to perform here. And he was 24 years old, rapper. And to tell on Tamer, a hip-hop artist, is not to explain who Tamer is. He's one of the most eloquent voices in the land of Palestine, Israel. He grew up in a ghetto, like until age 18 already. 5 of his friends, I think, was murdered in drug fights. The same strategy that the FBI used on Black American, the Israeli used on the Palestinian citizen of Israel, pushing drugs to the ghetto, crime. And for him, in a young age, he heard one time Tupac, and it changed his life, I think. And from there, he grew up to be is maybe one of the strongest voice for women's rights within the Palestinian community. He was one of the first rapper and only the same singer that adopted the LGBTQ community and support them, knowing that he lost 15 or 20% of his followers. And in Israel, he's one of the strongest voice for Palestine, and the Israeli government are really trying to destroy him, try to stop his shows, harassing him. And one of the reasons we're doing all this here is to use this voice of a binational language that we try to create. And also we're doing the show on Monday because he cannot make a penny now in Israel. Because the minute he's open his mouth, he can get arrested. For sure people will knock on the doors where his 2 kids are living. And it's a true hip-hop rapper, not like the one that hip-hop became this tits and boobs thing, but the one that it's grew up, he never left the hood. He lived in the hood, because this is part of the concept that when you do success, you don't run away to the fancy place. So to bring him here, it's also to offer him and other artists like that to make a living while it's impossible there. And also to share our call. And why all this connect to Edward Said? Because Edward Said wrote a book, his last book, that called Freud and the Non-European. Mm-hmm. And this book, I read it. I read it in the time that I was the most intellectual energy on me. I thought that I'm so smart, and I read everyone, and I read it not at all as academic. I read it as a call, like a call from Said to us as Israeli Jews to think about ourselves differently. And what he do, I try to do it short a bit, but somewhere here is my book, by the way. I don't know where. If somebody stole it, it's the biggest compliment. But it's called the book, What Does a Jew Want? On binationalism and other specters. And the binationalism is really using this call that Edward Said sent us. And what did he do in Freud and the Non-European? He read Freud writing on Moses. And Freud on Moses, whoever knows the text on Moses of Freud, it's full with mistakes. Like Freud made the biggest mistakes that are possible, and yet it's the most pure call of Freud. Because what Said explained, that Freud write that the Israelis, they murdered Moses as a murder of the father, but they murdered him because he wasn't pure Israeli, because he was Egyptian. So the father of the nation, he created the nation, created the concept of Israeliness or Jewishness after, but then it wasn't Jewishness, Israeliness. And by doing that, they took it so seriously that they said, he's not one of us, so let's kill him. And they kill him for being Egyptian. And what he said on Freud, he said, Edward said, Freud was so fascinated by this character because Freud felt the same. He felt a Jew and a European. He felt the two. And he tried all the time to prove that to European. You know, all the story with Young, really, is really needed a non-Jew in the community, because if not, psychoanalysis would become totally Jewish. So really for you to know, don't adore Jung so much. We just needed one non-Jew among us to feel universal. So, and he felt, and the European looked at him and said, I want to be both. And what Said tells us, that the only way to be a Jew is not to be a pure Jew. Or in a way to say, whoever tried to be a pure Jew is the farther away than be Jew. So what happened in Israel today, and I go back, I just do a little detour, but all this of Jew supremacy in Israel, that it's so disgusting to see the place I loved so much, feel that the Jew is separate from the Palestinian, that the Jew is the one that have all the right, when the and before even I speak on Gaza, before I speak on Gaza, I want to say what we have there is 7 million Jews with full privilege in the same land that there are 7 million Palestinians with no privilege. And this is unacceptable in 21st century. And somehow your government, American government, Germany, the whole support these horrific things of Jew supremacy and pure apartheid in a place that we try to create a place for all of us. And so when I read Said's text, in the end he ended so beautiful. He said, can we create a place that the Jewish and the Palestinian will not live as antagonists to each other, but together. And he offered us, in a way, he said, I hear what Freud was Freud and the non-European. He said, welcome to our place and be Freud and the non-European. I'm offering you, the Jews, to be able to be part of the non-European community. And this is amazing offering. This is so generous to offer it, to be part and equal. And he said this language is not a language of hippie, let's we all together, one voice, ta ta ta. He said, no, it will be, it's a struggle, it's a fight, it's a dialogue. It's just a beginning of a dialogue. To live in a place is not, let's have two-state solution, let's have this. It's a movement that created those two nations. The Jews and the Palestinians can create something so much bigger than them by creating this language. And this call for me, and I read it, I swear to God, I'm not so mystical, and you see I make fun of Jung, but I am a bit mystical, and I do read Jung sometimes secretly. So I read it as a call. And when I read it as a call, my friend, Giuliano Mehamis Al-Rahamo, the most handsome man in the Middle East, a Palestinian and a Jew, that everyone said is 50% Palestinian, 50% Jew. Of course, the parents met in the Communist Party. It was the only place that it can happen. He opened in Jenin refugee camp, the most terrible refugee camp, or the most hard one in the West Bank, in the occupied territory. He opened the Freedom Theater. And he asked me, will you join me, Udi? No Israeli Jew will go to the Freedom Theater. It's like many of the Amalia, the operation against Israel come from there. A lot of despair. Suddenly he arranged me a home there in the house of the number one wanted by the Israeli army. That's where I was sleeping for 1 year. But when I came there, Giuliano, by being this physique, this an amazing, beautiful man, beautiful character, charismatic, amazing actor and director, he taught me, if Edward Said explained me the concept, he taught me the move of binationalism, the dance of binationalism, what is to create these things together. And working there was maybe the most challenging and learning experience for me. And then he was shot dead in front of the theater he created, 5 bullets, and I'm carrying it with me everywhere. And in a way, I'm carrying Said and Giuliano with me everywhere, because they gave me an offer that I refuse to give up. And after this war now, it's hard to refuse to give it up. Because what happened now in Gaza, I cannot call myself Israeli Jew anymore. I all the time I want to call myself Israeli Jew because I wanted to change inside my own community. Even when I moved to live in Jenin refugee camp, Giuliano told me, continue to write to Israel every week. This is your community. This is what you have to change. But to see so many, and I know what Hamas did is horrific, and I know that their attack is unacceptable, and I know that whatever was there, it's a traumatic people for a nation. But to use this to create such a horrific ethnic cleansing, that more than 10,000 kids are dead, that, and all the time we speak about the death, but the death it's nothing compared to the full disaster. 700,000 kids are without home now. Million people without, they ride at like 50% on hunger. Houses demolished in a way that you cannot, there's no way to live there. 50,000 pregnant women don't have where to give birth, not even hospital that destroyed, like a clean place. And America continues sending money there. And in Germany, when I dare to speak for Palestine, they dare to call me anti-Semitic, those grandson of Nazis, that they have guilt, they shut me down, the Jews that try to keep my Jewish morality. So I am still very Jewish, and I'm very proud of it. And when I hear any anti-Semitic tone, it's really, I fight, unless if it's my friend Zizek, I allow him to be anti-Semitic, because he's funny. Yeah, he can do everything. But he's the only one, so don't try it on me. But I think that for us, for Tamer, and I feel so privileged that Tamer still agree to be my true comrade and continue to speak from grace in this hard situation. Because it's not easy for Tamer in this place to come and say, no, Udi is my brother, we still believe in we called it Noah Ark. We said that now there is a huge storm that we cannot stop. And with so much money that serve all the arm industry that enjoy to practice it on millions of Palestinians, then they all push them to try to kick them out to Egypt and to Africa. When all this, to have this little voice of Palestinian and Jews that stay together in what Tamer called not coexistence, because coexistence is a way to keep status quo, but to keep co-resistance, and to continue to keep this language of Said, of binationalism. It's maybe against all odds, but when Giuliano died, our good friend Alain Badiou wrote me, because I was really depressed, he wrote me, Udi, just remember, the revolution is always a surprise, never a result. So thank you for being here, and come all of you to Monday to try to see if we can create a small surprise. Thank you.